Good evening and welcome to the Tiffin Dragon Football Radio Show. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. You know we're coming to you live from the Wall Street Pub and Grills we do each and every Wednesday. I'm Russ Snyder, voice of the Dragons, director of broadcasting here on Tiffin University campus, and it might look a little different to you here on the program today if you're watching our video. If you're listening live on WTUD, so happy to have you along with us. And we want to remind you this Saturday when the Dragons go on the road to Kentucky Wesleyan, you can catch all their broadcasts at WTUD, TUDragonRadio.com, as well as at Coast Country 100.9 on your FM dial. So no Coach Chris Reisert here with us tonight. Let's go ahead and introduce who we have with us this evening. First, all the way at the other end is Tyler Johns. Tyler, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
All right, Mark Spencer sitting next to you. Mark, how are you?
Great, man. Thanks for having us.
And Bert Bathiany, how are you, sir?
Russ, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you guys for being here. I don't know what you guys did to get in trouble with Coach, and he isn't here, but you know what? He's not here, so here at the end of the program, we could talk about him in a little bit. But we'll get to meet you guys here in a little bit. We'll learn about your past that brought you to Tiffin University, where you're from. Just get to know you as a person a little bit, and then we'll talk to you about some of your student athletes that you coach in your particular coaching spots that you take care of with the Dragons. But first, before we get into that, and Kentucky Wesleyan later, let's talk about this past weekend. The Dragons welcoming in an opponent at no familiarity. This team coming in from New Hampshire, St. Anselm. And had any of you guys had any familiarity with this program before you started watching them on film and preparing for this game?
I knew there was a Division II program out east. That's about it. Came across them in recruiting previous spots, but that's about it. Not a lot of information heading into the game.
Well, I was able to look up some information on them before the game, and quite a long trip they had to make. We'll have to make it next year. So let's go ahead and get into it. You know, they came in, hadn't had a win yet on the season, and the Dragons kind of hitting their stride right now. You know, Tyler, we talked about it a little bit before the program, kind of a little bit of a feeling out process the first couple of weeks of the season. But you think the Dragons are kind of hitting that stride right now?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think anytime we got a young football team, and these guys are starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm, and you know, and the more and more that they get out and see the same things over and over and over, they're getting more comfortable, and they're doing a really good job with it, man. We've got a great group of kids, and you know, they show up and work every day, and they're handling it really well.
Mark, do you think that you know, kids, you know, a lot of us are creatures of habit. Do you think kids get into a more steady routine is going to help them in the long run, not only as a football player, but probably as a student as well?
I think absolutely. I think because we've simplified things, not only does it make it easier, they play faster. And from week to week, you can see the increase in understanding and confidence. So I think it's a good thing.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. This weekend, as we said, the past weekend, the Dragons taking on St. Anselm, and the Dragons scored early and they scored often. It got started in the first quarter. Stanley Jackson, what a year this young man is having here. Bert, we'll talk about him. He had a 7-yard touchdown pass from Nick Watson. Nick's been having a fantastic year. First drive, scoring drive of the game for the Dragons, 14 plays, 62 yards, and just under 4.5 minutes. And Stanley's been just a super productive member of that Dragon offensive unit out there in the wideout spot.
He's phenomenal. I think the scariest thing for me is going up against him in practice every day. I mean, but if that's who you're going up against every single day, you know we're getting better, we're going to improve. We are literally going against the best of the best every single day when we go up against our offense. So I think that really helps us out heading into the game, where now after going against Stanley for a whole week, I feel a lot of confidence.
Tyler, talk about that cohesiveness between him and Nick. Nick's off to a great start as well, and you can see it. Really, Nick's got that with a lot of different receivers, but it seems like him and Stanley got a little something special going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the really unique thing about it with Stanley coming to us prior to this season is how fast him and Nick were able to develop that chemistry. You know, and here's the thing with Stanley. He's a guy that he practices 100%, you know, and his practice habits are exactly what you'd want, and you know, he knows what he wants to do, and is able to go do that and build that chemistry with Nick because of his hard work.
Well, another wide receiver for the Dragons who kind of been Mr. Consistent for the Dragons this year, got the second touchdown. Gavin Woods, a 37-yard pass from Nick Watson, a 4-play, 51-yard drive, put the Dragons up 14-zip. And, you know, Gavin, Mark, seems to be a guy who's kind of got a nose for the end zone, and that receiver happens to be like in the right place at the right time a lot of times for Nick.
I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying. Gavin's blue collar, right? And he's worked his way into being a great player. Has tremendous understanding of the game, can read the triangle, understands all the adjustments, pretty good at the line of scrimmage, good in the intermediate game.
Also, the Dragons found a way to get another receiver in the end zone. How often, Bert, have you seen 3 straight touchdowns made by 3 different receivers from your quarterback is Devin Butler, who's really stepped up his game in the last couple of weeks as well for the Dragons. A 60-yard touchdown pass from Nick Watson, a 4-play, 80-yard drive with taking only a minute and 13 off the clock, but 3 different receivers, 3 touchdowns. Devin Butler, the most recent one.
Well, I think it just shows how many weapons we actually have on offense. And to the person who might not know Tiffin very well, they might be surprised of who this Devin Butler guy is. But we see him in practice every day. Right. So it was no news to us seeing him succeed the way that he has. And when you have all 3 of those guys running around, it can make some matchup nightmares for defense.
Well, nightmares for me, I'm gonna get selfish here a little bit. It's the double numbers. You know, you have number 5 Kevin Hyde back there returning kicks, and then you take him out and put number 5 Devin Butler back there. It took me a quarter and a half to get it figured out last week until I noticed the hair sticking out the back of the helmets. That's how I was able to figure out who it was.
We talk about nightmares. Be the special teams coordinator like Coach Spencer here and trying to figure all that out with the double numbers, because he wants to get the best players on the field, but then you can't have 2 of the same numbers running around, so that makes it tough for him too.
Mark, what is it about Devin that made you think that he'd be a man to put back there and just be a dangerous return man?
Sure. I think he's a natural, and what I mean by that is when you look at that unit, it doesn't matter how well or how bad it's blocked. It's all on the returner.
Right.
And what I find with him is when we don't get blocks, he can still make it happen.
Yeah, he's been pretty electric back there so far for the Dragons. 3 different receivers find the end zone through the first quarter and a half, and right before the half. You know, it's always important, especially in a close game, to score if you can right before the half, and if you get a chance to score right after the half and start the second half. And the Dragons score with 4 seconds left. Stanley Jackson, his second one. 35-yard touchdown pass from Nick, a 6-play, 85-yard drive. And Tyler, it's always good to get points on the board. The Dragons go up 27-zip heading into half.
Absolutely. No, Stanley made a heck of a catch on that one. You know, it just really speaks volumes about the talent that he is. That play was, you know, we put together a good little 2-minute drive there. Yep. I thought the line did a really good job, you know, protecting the passer, and we were able to efficiently move the ball. One of the things that we're always focusing on is continuing to press our tempo and improve in those areas, but it was good to see a well-executed 2-minute drill heading into halftime.
And Mark, it can only pay dividends for the team, and as we move, you know, later on in the season, there's some big games looming at the end of the year, but getting that on-field practice and in-game practice, you can do it all you want on the practice field, but being able to do it against a guy in a different colored jersey, different colored helmet, and be able to succeed at it has to pay dividends in the long run.
Well, I think the thing that Coach Reiser does a really good job with is our 2-minute drill. And if I'm correct, I think there's about 1 minute and 7 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the half.
You're exactly right, sir.
Yep. And the way that we executed, I mean, everyone understood what to do. They understood when the ball was dead. They understood when the clock was running. Mm-hmm. And then at the very end, we executed and put the ball in the end zone.
Bert, time management. I mean, everybody's seen it. How important is being able to have everybody on the same page to make sure your time management is that effective as it was for the Dragons in the final 2-minute?
Well, just like anything else, I think it comes with practice. And football is a game that's very situational, and we practice those situations every single week. Like today alone, we worked on the 2-minute drill, and we do that every single week. We practice red zone, we practice goal line. So we put our players in those positions on a weekly basis to when we get in the game, it's nothing new for them. They know the situation, they know what their assignment is, they know how to execute, and they can do it full speed.
They've been through the practice repetitions. They don't have to think about it now, and the coaching staff's got enough faith in them to put it out there on the field after what they've seen on the practice
Absolutely.
field. Well, we've mentioned a lot of very talented players on the offensive side yet, but maybe the most talented one we haven't mentioned yet, and he scored at the third quarter about halfway through. Jaquan Hardy, what a year that young man is having. 29-yard touchdown pass. Yeah, he scores not even on the ground. Another touchdown pass. Well, come on, Nick, let me just run it in. You're getting all the glory here, buddy. 10 plays, 77 yards, and 5:17. And Jaquan Hardy, Tyler, tell us about the work that young man puts in.
Yeah, he's a really, really special guy. You know, it's funny. He's the guy that you saw all summer in the indoor over there, you know, getting extra work in, running through different obstacle courses and everything else that he's setting up for himself. And it's really good to see a kid that's put in as much hard work as he has, and it's paying off for him. Right. You know, he's the guy that up front, when you miss a block here and there, you know, he can make you right, and those are the guys that are really special, and they're fun to coach. They're a lot of fun to coach.
Mark, you think that he had a little extra incentive coming back off the injury season he had last year to come back and maybe prove something to a few people?
I think absolutely. I think what I really like about him, he's very natural, very sudden, tremendous change of direction, explosive for 20, can house it from anywhere on the field.
Right, we saw that up at Walsh. I was telling Coach Rice when we did the show the following week, I think that Walsh video play-by-play guy had me in his broadcast because I was screaming and howling so loud on that 94-yard touchdown run. Next score for the Dragons, Nick Watson does it on the ground as we move into the fourth quarter. 1-yard run all by himself, 3 plays, 44-yard drive, just 44 seconds off the clock. And talk a little bit about what Nick does to prepare the defense out there in the practice field during the week.
Well, anytime you go against a dual-threat quarterback, that can just cause so many issues for the defense, and Nick is phenomenal. And calling him a dual threat, I mean, sometimes people say that and they think just legs. He is so accurate, and he commands the offense. He's well coached, and he studies, just like all our other players do who are succeeding right now. And it's just fun to watch Nick when he's out there. When you have a guy like that controlling the ball, commanding the offense, you know you're in good hands.
Well, you mentioned a double threat quarterback, and I think you're right. When people hear that, the first thought they think of is the legs. But Tyler, you probably agree with this. He is a dual threat quarterback, but his strength is probably in his arm.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's no doubt about it. You know, Coach mentioned it. He's an extremely accurate passer. Nick does a really good job, like you mentioned, commanding the offense, and I think there's something to be said about that.
Right.
I think you look at it, he's one of your top leaders on this football team. I don't think there's a doubt in anybody's mind that when Nick Watson has something to say, it's important, and you better listen up.
Well, the quarterback has to take on that role, and Nick had to take on that role from an early age in his career here at Tiffany University. He's really accepted that, and he's really thrived in that. So up next for the Dragons into the fourth quarter, Trent Kramer, 4-yard run. We're getting deep into the roster now, and the Dragons up 48-0. And Marcus, the talk now between the kids probably thinking about keeping that goose egg on the scoreboard was probably one of the main thoughts they had there as they put up that 48 spot at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I thought that as we started to get our twos in, we developed depth. Trent Kramer, I think, is really, in my estimation, a tremendous talent. Nice little change-up power back, that type of deal. And the thing that you saw across the board, offense, defense, and special forces, is you saw everyone playing hard no matter who was in the game.
Right. And Bert, even though the score was out of hand at that time, these reps for these young men getting a chance to get in there and play real competition football. Again, we talked about it earlier about things paying the 2-minute warning, the 2-minute drill paying dividends in the future. And we're not even talking about paying dividends, maybe not even this year, but next year and the following year, young men like that getting a chance to get out there and be productive has to do a world for their confidence.
Well, anytime you want to develop a football program, you have to have depth, and you have to continue to develop that depth week in and week out, and being able to get those guys live, meaningful reps in the game, that increases their ability to develop even more. So even though that we still wanted that goose egg, but getting those guys out there, we have an expectation for the position. Yes. Every single guy out there wanted to play their best and execute at the highest level.
Well, the St. Anselm did get on the board, but then as excited as the Dragons sideline was the entire afternoon, happened with about 3.5 minutes left in the ball game, and Riley Adolph went 55 yards for the Dragon touchdown, and that sideline was going nuts. Tyler, tell us about the vibe of the team when that happened.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about this team. You know, you really saw in moments like that, and there was a couple other ones throughout there. You know, the Trent Kramer touchdown, some different plays like that, where you really see our kids and how much they care for each other. You know, they're getting excited for each other. I think with Riley being a local kid here, that was huge. You know, a local kid having a lot of success on the football field. You know, some guys, Gavin, Riley, guys like that that are able to do those things and build strong communities here locally is a major factor in what we want to do here.
So Dragons get the big win, then you go back to the locker room, and you guys participate in the what's it called, the Dub Club, and they get in there, get to dancing. You guys get in that?
I don't know how much dance. I think Coach Rice was breaking it down in there. I don't know if we have any video of that, but I know our guys like to go in there and get after it, and then some of our kids go in there as well. So it's a fun environment, and they deserve it.
It's a brotherhood, right, Mark? I mean, that's what it is. You go out there and you bang heads and fight for your brother for 3.5 hours, and if you come out on top, you deserve to go into the locker room and celebrate a little bit.
I think absolutely, and the thing that I like about it, it's something that our kids like to do. It aligns with them, you know, and they get a kick out of it and whatnot, you know, and you just kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, the Dragons winners will go to Kentucky Wesleyan this Saturday. It's a 2 o'clock local time. We'll be playing in the Central Time Zone. If you don't know where Owensboro, Kentucky is, think of Evansville, Indiana, and go directly south. You'll run into Owensboro just to the west of Louisville, about an hour, 15, hour and a half, something like that. But we'll talk about them a little bit. Now let's meet these gentlemen here. We'll start all the way at the end there. Tyler Johns, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Let's talk about let's start with the moment that you realized you were going to come work at Tiffin University.
Yeah, no, it was a really special deal for my now wife and I. At the time, we're originally from the Findlay area, so for us to be able to have an opportunity to come back to kind of where our roots are,
right.
It was something that we wanted to jump on in a hurry. I'm very thankful of Coach Reisert for bringing me with him. We had been together at Ohio Dominican the past couple years and had a lot of success down there at a top-notch program. But to get to come back towards home a little bit more and kind of be back where our roots are, it was a no-brainer for us.
So you're from the Findlay area. Where'd you go to high school?
So I actually went to high school at Waynesfield Goshen, just outside of Lima down there, and then made the decision and ended up playing my college ball up there at Findlay.
All right, what position did you play when you were at Findlay?
I played DB up there, so yeah. I played.
It's DL.
Yeah, right. No, I played right tackle up there for 4 years.
Oh, he's a jokester. Nobody told me he's a jokester. Now
he's got some twinkle toes in him. I can see him doing that.
Now I'm figuring it out. So you played against the Dragons back in your day.
I did.
And you probably had success against the Dragons back in your day.
Well, I think that was a time where Tiffin was going through some different things, and I think that was right around the start of Coach Goff coming in, and obviously you see the work that he did and really getting us to where we are now. Can't say enough great things about him and what he was able to do here.
All right, go ahead and tell the folks what your positions that you coach are.
Yeah, so I coach the offensive line, and then try to take on a role here developing our run game each week. I've got a great group of guys. We're a very deep group. This will probably be the healthiest that we've been all season. Heading into absolutely, knock on wood. We'll head into this game with 10 guys that we feel can play, and for me that's a huge thing. I'm a firm believer that when you have depth at a position and you can get those guys in and keep them fresh and get some reps off your starters, that not only are you building depth for the future, but you're also keeping guys fresh as the season wears on. It's a hard position to play offensive line, and that's a lot of contact every week, and when you can get those guys a blow and have guys that you don't feel that there's any drop off, I think that speaks volumes to the unit, the leadership in that unit, and just kids themselves as they've really they've come a long way since the spring.
Right, and you mentioned your offensive line, and Trent was on Trent's. Clark, yes, was on the. I thought I was going to say it wrong. Was on the program last week, and he's a young man who has moved positions a few times in his career at the Dragons. And you mentioned depth. That was something when I first started here at Tiffin University. That was the glaring thing that we needed to fix. Right. And the fact that you're saying you got 10 kids in your offensive line who you are comfortable plugging in right now is something I haven't heard from an offensive line coach at Tiffin University in quite some time. So that's music to my ears, because if there's one spot where you could really use some depth, it's on the offensive line.
There's no doubt. Trent's a guy that I can't say enough good things about. You mentioned it. He's moved around a lot here. Even I think this season I would be guessing if I gave you a for sure answer, but I believe we've probably had 4 or 5 different starting lineups in 5 games, and that just speaks volumes to guys like Trent that are able to move around and play multiple positions. It's really important for me as a coach to cross train these guys and get them ready to play different spots and be able to move them around and not make them one-trick ponies out there.
How much trouble is that defensive line that we have give you in practice? That's some very talented guys across the ball from you.
Oh, there's no doubt. I think I think Coach B would probably be a little bit more bashful with this than I would. I have no problem saying that I think those guys are some of the best that we see all season. We get to practice against every day. Guys like AJ Wright and Charlie Cleveland are special players, and man, they give you fits all week, and you head into the game and you can't wait to get to game day just because you're ready to play someone else.
Absolutely. All right, Tyler, thank you. Mark, your turn. Let's start with you the same way. Talk about when you found out or you made that decision and the realization that you were going to come to Tiffin University and be a part of this program.
Sure. For me, it was pretty simple. Like I've known Chris since 2010, and we've had a really good relationship in the profession. And I think the world of him, not just as a football coach, but as a person. And I've always known what he was going to be, that type of deal. So when he gave me the call, I said, well, you know what, it's you. I'm going to listen. We talked some more, and that's how I ended up here.
All right, where are you from originally?
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Grew up in Worthington, Ohio.
All right, what high school did you go to in Worthington?
Thomas Worthington.
All right, my nephew is a Thomas Worthington graduate as well.
He's a Cardinal.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So you grew up in Columbus. You went to Thomas Worthington. Where'd you go to college?
Went to Ohio University.
Ohio University.
Played for Tom Lichtenberg there. In the mid to early to mid '90s.
All right, and what position did you play?
Tailback.
Tailback.
Yep.
That could be a pretty challenging position, especially at the Division I level. You have anything that really sticks out in your mind from your playing days? Anything like did you break a big one against somebody, or somebody come and put the cuckoo birds on you a couple times?
I did get knocked out in one game.
Did you?
We actually, I think my junior year, played at Carolina, and they were 5th in the country. Got knocked out on a kickoff return.
Wow.
But primarily, my responsibilities, I came in the game basically on 3rd down because I understood protections. We actually had backs there that were much better than I was, and then I was basically a special teams guru. Played on all 4 of them.
But there's a spot, like you said, you may have some more, a running back maybe on a squad with more talented backs, but a lot of times these more talented backs aren't good at protection, aren't good at picking up the schemes and stuff. So there is a spot for anybody and everybody if you're willing to work out and find your niche. And like you said, being a 3rd down back and being a special teams player, there's room for a lot of guys like that.
Absolutely. And if you really think about it, the majority of teams are made that way.
Yeah.
You're going to have a couple guys that are, kind of on the field every single down, but when you start to really look at a roster, you probably need, a third of them are basically role players.
Utility
and that's kind
guys.
of what I was. Absolutely.
And you're coaching special teams?
Absolutely. Coaching special teams here in the tight ends.
All right, talk about tight ends. You got some big fellows. When our tight ends get the ball out there in wide open space, you got one at 245 and one at 271, if I remember correctly.
I don't know these two.
That's what they're listed in the book, at least. But you got a couple big guys, and they get the ball.
Sure.
DBs don't want to see them.
Sure. Hey, Coach Reister, if you're listening, throw the tight ends the ball.
Throw the tight ends the ball. But your tight ends, I know they're going to be able to catch the ball, but they got to be able to block too, especially we talked about the running backs we have back there. They're a big part of that too.
Sure. And in our run game, I think they've done a tremendous job of controlling the edge. They understand what it is that they have to do. We've got a physical guy in Blake Darnell, very physical player. Spencer Moyer, more athletic young man, but he plays his butt off. And then Reed Martin, Reed's starting to get more reps as we go along, and there's really not a drop-off between 1 and 3.
Let's talk about the special teams aspect.
Sure.
We talked about Devin going back to the kick return.
Yeah.
You got Gavin Woods back there on the punt return. You're a sure-handed guy back there. Talk about some of the work that they put in, everybody puts in the special teams in practice.
Sure. At the end of the day, no matter where you go, one of the things that, I spoke to Coach Reister about when he spoke to me about the special teams role, as I said, how do you see it from a personnel perspective? And if the head guy's not committed to it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if he's committed, you've got a chance. And what's happened is we've taken some of our best players and they're starting on 2 special teams units, and you can see the difference on the field. When I look at those units, it's weird. Personally, in my opinion, it comes down to the long snapper, it comes down to the punter, and it comes down to the returner. And if you're dynamic in those positions, you got a chance.
Well, Dave Orlando's been doing a real nice job for you, punting the I almost said basketball, punting the football and doing your kickoffs for you as well.
Yeah, he's gradually gone up. I think his first game he averaged about 35.3 per punt. Against St. Anselm, he basically averaged about, I think it was 41, and then he actually had a game where he actually averaged about 43.3. So gradually he's getting it. He's starting to understand the scheme, where the kick point's at, and he's doing a good job.
It's going to be tough to beat David because he's a very integral part of the game, but he's the one guy on the team that the coaches hope never sees the field. So kind of a catch-22 there, but he's doing a really good job for you this year. And A.J. Nikolai seems to have kind of solidified that kicking position for you too.
He has. He's bought in. He's done a tremendous job. Anywhere from 35 and in. A.J.'s pretty good. And our unit, protection-wise, has gotten much better from game 1 to game 5. So it's looking good.
All right, Bert, your turn. Let's talk about you when you found out that you were going to come to Tiffin University.
Well, it's interesting because I've known Chris for quite some time through the recruiting ranks. We ran into each other quite a bit. When he played at Ohio Dominican, his offensive coordinator was a man named Chris Oliver, who took over at Lindsey Wilson College, which was my first coaching job.
Okay.
And I was down there for 3 years, and that's how I ran into Chris a couple times. And really, it was just pleasantries between, asking how the family's doing, how's recruiting, this and that. And when he got the job, I remember going home and telling my wife, I say, hey, honey, remember this guy, Chris Reiser, I told you about? He just got the Tiffin job. I think he's going to do some big things there. And then lo and behold, a couple weeks later, I actually get a call from him asking me to come interview. I stepped foot on campus, and you could just feel what they were building here. Everyone here loves the Tiffin Dragons. It's thick, it's passionate, and you can just feel it across campus. And once I left my interview, I knew this is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a part of something special. And you can just see it growing and see it building every single day within our football
I agree with that 100%. I've been watching it grow for a few years now, and I love the direction that the new helm has the Dragon football program going in. Now, these two here are probably pretty familiar with Tiffin just from being Ohio. You're not from Ohio, so you probably didn't have a whole lot of familiarity with Tiffin before.
No, I grew up in Fort Thomas, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Cincinnati. But actually, my grandparents live in Heath, Ohio.
Okay.
My mom's from Heath, Ohio. My dad went to school in Ohio, so I was pretty familiar with Central Ohio. Not so much Northwest Ohio,
Right.
but I still knew the Tiffin name through actually Nate Washington,
Sure.
being in the NFL and stuff like that, and then knowing that they went from NAI to Division II and all that. But so I was familiar with them. But like you said, I didn't grow up in the area, so not as much as these two.
So where did you play your college ball?
I played my college ball at Denison University.
Okay, and then you coached there for a while
Yep.
too, right? Let's talk about your playing days first.
Well, I played defensive back there and linebacker for 3 years, and had the opportunity to play under a man who became like a father figure to me, and Jack Hayden. He was our defensive coordinator, and he ended up being our head coach. And I got the opportunity to leave Lindsey Wilson and go coach with him, and it was something I jumped on right away. I was there for 6 years, and we had a lot of success there. We were able to really turn the program around, I thought, and leave it in good hands. And then this opportunity came up, and I knew it was something that I wanted and wanted to jump on it.
I think every coach wants to, if nothing else, they want the program to be better when they leave than when they got there. Is that what you
Absolutely.
feel?
And obviously, I mean, me, that being my alma mater, was also my dad's alma mater.
Right.
I had some, probably a little bit more invested compared to some other people. But with Coach Ham, all that goes to him, his vision and what he's been able to do with that program. I know Coach Reiser and him have known each other as well through the coaching ranks and all that. But it was a great experience, a wonderful experience, and it really helped prepare me for this position now.
It's amazing how much all the coaches know each other. They're just, like you said, through the ranks, whether it's crossing in recruiting or coaching clinics or, going to all-star games, things like that. It's just amazing how all that
It really is a fraternity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely is. All right, so what positions you coaching here?
I coach the defensive backs. I'm also the defensive coordinator.
Well, the defensive backs, they have been pretty opportunistic this year for the Dragons. Wouldn't you say?
Well, we stress turnovers a lot, and that all comes from the vision of Coach Reiser. We have a saying we call ATB, which means just attack the ball, and we emphasize it every day in practice. And I've never been around a head coach, or especially an offensive coach, who celebrates more when the defense gets turnovers in practice.
Awesome.
And we have video of Coach Reiser celebrating more than anyone. So that attitude, all
That's
those
coming from a quarterback's
plays,
mindset.
Absolutely, that comes directly from Coach Reiser, and we try to sprinkle that in, and we reward them like crazy. So anyone who gets an ATB, they get a T-shirt, and they walk around pretty proud with it. So now it's just the contest of who can get the most T-shirts.
Well, we talked about the defensive line. We talked about the secondary. Why don't you talk a little bit about the linebackers? Jacob Murda's probably the leader of that group, but talk about the work that those young men put in.
What can you say about Jacob Mercy? He literally is a coach on the field. I have to slow him down sometimes just because he knows everything so fast and he can process it so much faster. He actually has to slow him down a little bit so everyone else can get caught up to him. But what a fantastic young man. He's a captain of our football team. He's a leader of our football team. And anytime you have a young man like that in the middle of your defense, you know you're going to be pretty successful.
We'll talk about your defense from week one to the progression of where they are right now. Talk a little bit about how, if you like the direction they're going. I'm sure you do. But talk about the work they put in and where you see them, how they've moved, and where you think they can go.
Well, I think we haven't even scratched the surface of what we could be, but I am really, really happy with the growth that we've seen from week 1 all the way to now. And we always talk about continuous growth throughout your time, and we always want to continue to get better each and every week.
Right.
And I feel like if we can keep doing that incrementally throughout, and you're playing your best ball at the end of the year, you're going to have the chance to do something really, really special. So I'm really, really proud of the progress that we've made. I still think we can obviously get better, and I think our kids are like that. They're hungry for it, and we're going to keep trying to go 1-0 each week and getting better, and hopefully we're playing our best ball by the end of the year.
Well, you guys are pretty good at this. We've already eclipsed the half-hour point, guys. So you guys, we're rocking and roll this. So we won't keep you much longer. We're going to start wrapping things up. Well, you guys each will work from Tyler over towards Bert. Why don't you give me just a short phrase or something short about key to success for the Dragons this Saturday up at Kentucky Wesleyan?
Sure, absolutely. Offensively, we talk about it every week. We got to protect the football. Right now, I believe we are 4th in the country in turnover margin. Not only does that credit, our offense taking care of the ball and our defense, really attacking the football. But that's going to be one of the huge things each and every week for us.
Well, taking care of the football, I mean, having a turnover margin like that just changes everything.
Absolutely. No, we've been able to put some long drives together and grind off quite a bit of the clock, and then you go punch it in and get it to the bench, and the defense gets a turnover, and you get to go do it again.
Absolutely.
It makes for really fun Saturdays.
Mark up a key for the Dragons this Saturday.
Sure. I mean, I think keep your defense on the sideline, right? That's a tremendous sign of time of possession.
Right.
Win the field position battle. Create long fields for your defense to play on and short fields for your offense to play on.
And Bert?
It's something that we say all the time in our program, CPW, and then outrun, out hit ATB. We got to protect the football. We got to take it away.
You guys come on and say these things to me. I don't know what they're talking about all the time. At least you explain what ATB was. You guys, the kids will sit here and they'll throw that stuff out there. I'm like, yep, just nodding, agreeing. But as I said, the Dragons, 2 o'clock this Saturday as the Dragons go on the road to take on Kentucky Wesleyan. 2 o'clock kickoff. You can catch pregame. We'll start about 12:45 here at the replay of the the Tiffin Dragon Football Radio Show, and then we'll join Coast Country 100.9 on your FM dial at 1:30 as we get ready for the kickoff at 2 o'clock. Guys, you guys were awesome today. Thank you guys so much. That was a lot of fun, and hope you had some fun too. Let's go get a big W Saturday and keep working towards a new W each and every week.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Russ.
All right, thank you guys. This has been the Tiffin Dragon Football Radio Show live from the Wall Street Pub and Grill Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. right here on your home of the Dragons, TUDragonRadio.com. Have a great night, everybody.